Lucky. The day before Thanksgiving in 1995, I tested positive for HIV. It was my sophomore year in college at Kent State University. I had not been feeling well and had lost my appetite for a few days. I figured I was recovering from the 48-hour flu. Nevertheless, as a sexually active 23-year-old gay black man, I decided to get an HIV test. When the doctor told me my test results, I was shocked. A week later, I went to my first appointment with an HIV/AIDS specialist. I'm sure he could see the fearfulness in my face, although I was trying my best to control my emotions. When he asked, "How do you feel?" I said, "I'm afraid to go to sleep at night because I'm afraid I might not wake up." I dropped my face into my hands and I wept as I tried to silence my sobs. He said, "Don't cry. You're lucky it's happening to you now." Growing up in Canton, Ohio was challenging. I did not know anyone who was gay until I went to college, so I had to figure out how to be gay on my own. Occasionally, a gay character would make a cameo appearance on a television series, but that was all there was in the 80s. Much of my education came from watching the news about gay men dying of AIDS and wondering if this tragedy was my destiny, or from gay romantic comedies and movies about AIDS or VHS that I ordered from the TLA video magazine. I can imagine myself in the happy moments, but everything was about gay white men, so I thought I couldn't be black and gay. But trying to be straight always felt unnatural, awkward. I knew I wasn't pulling it off. When Magic Johnson, the NBA basketball player, publicly announced he was HIV positive, it brought the epidemic to my front door. My dad never talked to me about sex until Magic Johnson. He said, "Use a rubber when you have sex so you won't get AIDS. Because once you get AIDS, you're sick for 2 years and then you die." In order to end the conversation, I simply said, "Okay." I was 16 when we had the talk. The doctor told me I was lucky that I tested HIV positive when I did. He explained that the first protease inhibitor medication had been approved for use by the FDA. This gave HIV positive individuals the option of a cocktail treatment. The cocktail was 2 antiretrovirals, AZT and 3-TC, taken along with the protease inhibitor, Crixivan. At best, I thought it would slow the progression of the disease. But in my mind, Big Ed's 2-year timer was ticking and I needed to make some changes. The first order of business was to figure out how to pay for my medication. Since I wasn't tested anonymously, my HIV status was considered a pre-existing condition, which meant the cost of my medication wouldn't be covered for 1 year. Luckily, I was a student at Kent State, which allowed me to charge my medication to my student account at a monthly cost of $750. I used my student loan money to pay the balance off on my account at the beginning of each semester. When I tested positive, I was still commuting daily from my father's home in Canton to college and work in nearby Kent, Ohio. In less than 2 months, I decided to move to Kent. I left home because I didn't want to take the risk of anyone in my father's household seeing my medication or the medical insurance mail I would start to receive. I did not want anyone in my family or hometown to find out about my HIV status. I come from a hyper-macho black family. It was bad enough that I was gay. Everyone in my family knew this, but no one would dare utter a disparaging word about me for fear my dad, Big Ed, would break their jaw. My father taught my 3 younger brothers and me that we had to be men, and that included handling things on our own. That's what I felt I was doing. I would not let my family bear the stigma of having a gay son, and certainly not a gay son dying of AIDS. I felt it was my burden alone. That's why I decided to move out of my father's house and eventually to move out of state. I literally looked at the map and said, "What's the furthest place away from Canton, Ohio?" The answer was Seattle, Washington. When I woke up, my head felt clearer. I was over the shock of realizing I was on my own. I had no choice but to look for assistance with a local HIV nonprofit. I grabbed the phone book and looked up HIV in the yellow pages. I ended up calling a place called the Northwest AIDS Foundation. I talked to the receptionist and explained my situation. He said they did offer emergency housing, but I had to come in for an intake interview. I got on their schedule for the following morning. The Northwest AIDS Foundation set me up with state insurance to cover my doctor's visits and my medications. They also gave me a 2-week voucher for the Seattle YMCA, and I was very excited. I thought it was going to be just like the Village People song, full of young men passing through town, just starting out. But once I settled in, I realized there were no hot young men to speak of, just transients and displaced families. I dealt with my stay by telling myself it was all just a grand adventure. But then I had to figure out a way to get some fast money coming in. I figured I had 3 options: hooker, stripper, or server. Due to my HIV status, I didn't want to put anyone at risk, so I ended up getting a job as a server at Denny's. It was at this point that Drew wished me luck, said goodbye, and jumped on a plane back to Ohio. I was all alone in the big city, but I wouldn't be alone for long.